I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in July 1964, and making a very long story short, I became a weather observer. I was trained to be a weather observer. In the 60s, before the internet and computers, you had to have a person actually go out and measure the winds and look at the clouds and send in wind reports. My job, and plot up weather maps and so on. I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, outside Las Vegas, Nevada, and from 1965 till May of 1967. And of that time, I spent most of it at the Indian Springs Gunnery ranges, northwest of Nellis. They're like 90 miles. Nevada is a big stretch of desert, and it was out in the Indian Springs Valley, which is a desert valley covered with mountains. I discovered that as the weather observer, it was my duty to get up at 3 in the morning and go out to drive out into the desert and release a weather balloon and track it and phone the winds into Nellis. I discovered that at the north end of Indian Springs Valley there is a base that the U.S. Air Force has for extraterrestrials. I named those extraterrestrials the Tall Whites. When you're on the public highway at Indian Springs, Nevada, which everyone can find in the maps, and as my website shows, when you look north up the valley, there's a group of mountains that are like 45, 50 miles up there. The base is dug in on those mountains, and the Air Force runs that whole section of desert. It's the back door to Area 51. However, it is not itself. It's inside the Area 51 perimeter, but you know, you can see the valley is very long, and as you see on the map, very wide, and it's at the northern end of that valley. They've been there for a very long time. The Tall Whites live much longer than we do. The Tall Whites live, I estimate, 600 to 800 years. They live about 10 times longer than we do. But they don't age the way we do. When they get to be equivalent to a human, about 40, instead of showing the effects of age, they start growing again. So that throughout most of their life, they're the same height that I am, 5'11", but they're all individuals, so there's variation. But then as they get older, they get very tall. I've seen them more than 8.5 and 9 feet tall, but the very old ones get very fragile because their organs do not grow in the same proportion as their skeleton and their muscles. Eventually they get so old and so tall that their organs can no longer support their body and they die of old age. This is not necessarily the benefit you would think, because their body doesn't heal as fast as we do. They're very frail. And like if we fell down and broke a leg, we might be up and about in a month or so, or 6 months, maybe in a bad case a year. But see, if they fell down and broke their leg, they would easily be 5 Earth years before you could see much healing at all. Right. One morning when I was out in the desert, after I'd become friends with a few of them, because they're all individuals, and so, you know, there were people who trusted me and I trusted, and there were people that I'm still terrified of. They're generals. So you had to be very specific about which ones you were interacting with. But one time I scratched myself in the morning, and I was young and healthy in those days, and by the afternoon I was healing up. It had already scabbed over, and I was no longer wearing a Band-Aid or anything. And a group of them came around, and they knew that I had scratched myself in the morning, and seeing that I was already healed in the afternoon, they were shocked. One of the tall white lady visitors was asking their guard, "Are all humans like this?" And their guard was saying, "Yes, they appear to be." And whereas for them, see, that would have been a month just healing up an ordinary scratch. I don't have any precise numbers, but as I describe in Book 3, in 1966, when the tall white lady, whose CIA name was whose name that she used for humans was Pamela, when she was trying to pass her final exam to be in the technology transfer program, her final exam required that she walk up to me with all of their instruments turned off. and meet me on my terms. And she was terrified of humans. She was terrified of me, as I describe in Book 3. On that night, I estimate there were between 200 and 500 tall white individuals, men, women, and children, watching her from the mountains to the east, along with several U.S. Air Force generals and a couple of humans in business suits that I suppose were from the Department of Defense. And so the number of tall whites, while not in the millions, could easily be several thousand, or certainly several hundred. A deep spacecraft would the large deep spacecraft, they came in several sizes, would carry as many people as a cruise liner for the Mediterranean or for the Caribbean. And so it wouldn't be unusual for there to be 200 or 300 of them get off a deep spacecraft, although the most I ever actually counted on a deep spacecraft was somewhere between 70 and 90. When I was out there, I had to, everything I learned about them, I had to learn by either observing them or by talking with them. And they never came to teach me anything. They came for their purposes. A common one, about half of the time, was that the mothers would have children who liked to play. I'm the weather observer. I have pretty colored balloons. I release them with lights on at night. I track them. The children loved to come and play where I was. Here on Earth, we can see the stars at night, but I understand that on their home planet, it's bigger than the Earth, and the atmosphere is denser. Night is rare. And I understand that on their home planet, they cannot see the stars at night. One of the things they love to do is to walk around the Indian Springs Valley at night and just look at the stars. Well, they considered it to be an extremely beautiful place. Their home planet is apparently a warm desert-like planet without oceans, but with only large lakes. And see, when they came to where I was, if there was no reason for them to talk with me, they wouldn't. They might just show up with the children might just play, and they might go away. They really didn't feel like telling me anything. I mean, I was an enlisted man. I had only 2 stripes and later 3. They knew very well that I was just an enlisted man. If they've ever forgot that, the American generals would be happy to prove it by having me clean a few latrines and show who was given the orders. And so they never came to discuss policy or anything. They came for their purposes. Now, as part of the technology exchange program, they needed they're naturally more afraid of us than we are of them. That when they come here, they have to learn to overcome their fear of us. And see, from their point of view, it was nice to have Charlie out there, the expendable human, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then see, they could practice talking with me and overcoming their fear of humans. One time, it's far easier than what you might think, because people don't expect that. I wouldn't say there were thousands at the base all the time. The base was used like an airport, and so, when the deep spacecraft would come in, they would be in port for 2 weeks, and the people would get off while the deep spacecraft was being repaired and refueled and refurbished. So the number at the base might vary from as little as the base personnel, perhaps 50, 60 people, to a much larger number, perhaps 1,000. But there was not a lot of people there. But keeping it secret was so easy. One time, my orders were that nobody could ask me any questions. My own commander couldn't. He wasn't told. Only the highest ranking generals knew what was actually up the valley. So, you didn't have to keep it a secret. You didn't have to do anything. Nobody believed me anyway.